Let's talk about 3 decisions that you should really make heading into 2026 that I believe will radically change and transform your life. Tony Robbins once said to me, he says, Calvin, the quality of your life is in the quality of the decisions that you make. Not making a decision is deciding to continue with what you have. If you're at a crossroads and one pathway is to something new, there is a pathway that you're already on, which is your current reality. And if you don't make the decision to get off at this exit, you are still on the fucking freeway heading somewhere. And if it's not where you want to be, the sooner you get off the freeway, the better it is. But I would rather be the person that made the decision and it turned out to be wrong than the person that hesitates on making the decision. Don't put so much focus and effort on picking the right one or the wrong one. Instead, just fucking pick one. Because it's only once you've made the decision and you've got the feedback that you'll know if I've done the right thing or the wrong thing. When you're making big decisions, there is a principle of going all in. But I'm also not encouraging you to risk everything when you don't know what's going on. It's in the moment where you say, I do. It's in the moment where you say, I'm leaving. It's in the moment where you say, yes, please, I would like to take advantage of that. It's in the moment where you say, you're hired or you're fired. It's the moment where you say, I'm going to take my health seriously or not, right? Like, it's the moment of decision that everything changes for you. And up until that, before that, it's mental masturbation. You're talking about, thinking about it, but not doing anything about it. Go all in, play to win, and show up and earn God's favor every single day. Let's talk about 3 decisions that you should really make heading into 2026 that I believe will radically change and transform your life. 3 decisions that will radically change the quality of your life. Tony Robbins once said to me, he says, Calvin, the quality of your life is in the quality of the decisions that you make. The quality of your life is in the quality of the decisions that you make. So the quality of your life is the quality of the decisions that you make. And let's consider this, if you would, that when we're talking about the decisions that you're making, it's sometimes the decision of what you choose to do, and some of the times it's the decision of what you choose not to do. Okay? But also let's highlight this as well. Who's been guilty in 2025 of delaying making decisions that you know you need to make and putting it off until some period of time? It's like, that's a future Calvin problem. And I want everyone to be aware of this. Not making a decision is deciding to continue with what you have. Okay? If you're at a crossroads and one pathway is to something new, there is a pathway that you're already on, which is your current reality. And if you don't make the decision to get off at this exit, you are still on the fucking freeway heading somewhere. And if it's not where you want to be, the sooner you get off the freeway, the better it is. Okay? And doesn't mean to say, by the way, that when you make the decision to get off the freeway, it leads you to a better place. Let's be very clear. Sometimes you make the wrong decision. But I would rather be the person that made the decision and it turned out to be wrong than the person that hesitates on making the decision. So whenever I want to write that down, I really want you to get this. There is only upside from making the wrong decision. There's only upside. Okay, so hear me when I share this. So many people that we speak to, you can imagine how many people I speak to that are in that moment of decision, right? Decision to join a program, the decision to invest into something, the decision to start a relationship, to change career paths, to pursue a passion for coaching, whatever it is. And there's a hesitancy. Well, I know what I've got now. It's the misery of certainty of misery versus the misery of uncertainty, right? And let's say you fuck it up. Let's say you make the wrong decision. What happens is, if you trust your gut and you trust your intuition and it leads you astray, what happens? You learn. You get feedback. You go, I thought that all of those things were right, and actually now that I've got more information, I realize that I was off a little bit. My compass was a little bit off. And so what happens the next time you make a decision? You're a bit wiser. You strengthen that intuition. You strengthen that internal compass through making more decisions and through learning from what happens when you make them. I'm a big believer in just fucking decide and then figure it out. Because what happens is, as soon as you decide, and I'm sure you've all had an experience like this, you've been at a crossroads, you don't know what you're meant to be doing, you just go, fuck it, I have to do this, I'm just going to do this. And as soon as you step into it, it's almost like immediately after taking that step, the moment after making the decision, you take the step and you get feedback. And you instantly know, fuck yeah, this was the right decision. It's like, I don't know what it is. It's something external or internal. There's a validation in some way that reminds you you've done the right thing, you're on the right track. There's some sort of a moment of realization and recognition of, I've made the right decision. Who's had a moment like that before by show of hands? Awesome. But on the flip side, who's also had a moment where you've made a decision, you've taken that step, and almost instantly you realize, fuck, this was a big mistake? Who's ever had that moment as well? 100%. But you don't get either of those moments until you've made the decision. And so don't put so much focus and effort on picking the right one or the wrong one. Instead, just fucking pick one, because it's only once you've made the decision and you've got the feedback that you'll know if I've done the right thing or the wrong thing. And so here's the thing I guess is important for everyone to be aware of straight up front, which is that when you're making big decisions, there is a principle of going all in, and I'm going to talk about going all in. But I'm also not encouraging you to risk everything when you don't know what's going on. And so I think for a lot of people, they look at successful people and think that these successful people are willing to risk it all. And my experience is really that's not the case. That there is a point in time where they are willing to risk it all, but at that moment in time, often, if you speak to them, you'll understand they've already had what we would refer to as the I can do this moment. I want you to write that down. I've talked about this in some of our courses and programs, the I can do this moment. And what that means is that's a moment in time where they go, oh, this makes sense now. It makes sense for me to go all chips in because I know I've got a winning hand. But I'm not going all chips in blind. I'm not a gambler. I'm making a decision. Think about someone like a Richard Branson. So Richard Branson, obviously, and bless him and his family at the moment, he's just lost his wife for 50 years. So, you know, devastating to lose the love of your life. And so our thoughts are with him and his family. But when you think about Richard Branson, a lot of people think about Sir Richard as a gambler, an adventurer, a bit of a maverick, a bit of a risk taker. And what most people don't realize was that when he launched Virgin Atlantic, the airplane company, he only had one plane. But he made a deal with Boeing where he said, hey, I'm going to lease the plane from you for a year, and I'm going to buy it from you, but I have the ability, if you're good? I have the ability where if it all goes to shit, I want to lock in my price point to sell it back to you at the end of 12 months. So I want the ability to buy more planes from you in 12 months if it goes right. But if it goes wrong, I want to be able to lock in my downside. So I want you to write this down. Protect the downside. Protect the downside. One of my best friends, Simon Rawadi, and Jason will tell you, Simon is a special man. I'm not a calm man, was it? I'm not a patient man, sir. It's an inside joke. So Sam Rawadi is notorious for saying things like, when the world is collapsing around you, advance, don't contract, right? But what he's also very good at, and what he's amazing as an entrepreneur, as a husband, as a father, is that he analyzes the worst case scenario and he makes sure he's comfortable with the worst case scenario before he moves forward. And so if you think about it, most times, if we think about what's the worst that could happen here, one, it's probably not as bad as we would think. Two, the chance of it being the absolute worst case scenario is probably not as significant as we think. But if we're comfortable with something being the worst case scenario, then it really doesn't matter what happens, because it's like, hey, I'm totally fine to deal with that uncertainty because I've already gone there in my head. I've thought about it. Yes, it would be shit, but I'll survive and it's okay. And then you can focus on playing offense, not playing defense. Hence, if this is making sense. So what we want to do is put ourselves in a position to be able to win through making a decision, and then just keep making decisions, understanding that you are going to make wrong decisions. Like, it's inevitable. In fact, the biggest mistake that you could make is not making a decision because you're afraid of making the wrong decision, which by default is therefore the wrong decision. Because not only do you not get to learn, but also you don't get to win. So it's like, I'm so afraid of losing that as a result of my fear of losing, that what I'm not doing is winning because I'm afraid of losing, which means that I'm therefore not winning and therefore I'm automatically losing. Hands of you understanding what I'm sharing here. So when you're thinking about decision making, very simple, before I tell you the decisions that you should make. When you think about decision making, one, what is the pathway that's going to get me closer to where I'm going? That makes sense, right? What's the pathway that's going to get me closer to where I'm going? Number two, once I've analyzed that pathway, what's the payoff? Where am I headed? What's the ultimate goal and objective? And is that worth it? Is making this decision worth it? Because understand that there's no free lunches. There's always a trade-off. There's no silver bullets. So if you do something new, it's going to come at the cost of something else. The investment of going to the gym comes at the cost of leisure. The investment into a relationship comes at the cost and sometimes of some sense of freedom, but you get a higher trade-off of purpose, right? I was speaking to a friend of mine. I'm not sure if he's listening. But he was talking about how he didn't have in his mind a plan to have children. And I said, bro, that's a massive fucking mistake for you. I said, I think you'd actually be a phenomenal dad, and I really hope you change your mind. And he said, well, I've got such a big belief in what high value for me is freedom. And he says, I'm naturally a bit of a selfish person. And I said, look, I hear you on that, but trust me, freedom's overrated by comparison to purpose. Freedom's overrated by comparison to purpose. I would absolutely sacrifice all the freedom that I have in my life for my kids, because the purpose and the love that you have for your children is just outrageous by comparison. And of course, discipline equals freedom. You're actually more motivated to create freedom for your children than you ever were for yourself, right? Now, I'm not saying kids are for everybody, but in this case, kids absolutely would be an amazing step for him as well. So hopefully with enough peer pressure from me, eventually he'll have kids, right? And I'm working at that for him, right? Because I just know that will be such a beautiful process. And I'm glad that he is listening, Ash. I'm glad. Make sure you turn up the fucking speaker. I'm going to also give him some other, he should probably also do more work and work a bit harder and not have such limiting beliefs. In fact, if he was really committed to the company Wild Success, he would probably work for free purely to demonstrate how valuable the opportunity is. If he was probably more appreciative of the opportunity, he would work for free, just as a bit of an idea, right? But I'm glad he's not listening to this call, right? But the point being, guys, get what I'm trying to say? It's like, hey, consider the upside, and yes, there's going to be a trade-off. You have kids, your life is not going to be the fucking same. And when you have the life way you want it, like, fuck, this is amazing. But then when you look at having kids, you're like, fuck, they're sacrificing all of the good things in my life. And unfortunately, when you speak to most parents, what do they tell you? It's hard, they fucking slave it, so it's just a fucking nightmare. But you know what? When you look at people, often they don't have one kid, they have multiple. Why? Because it's actually fucking amazing. It's actually fucking amazing. Right? That the joy that you get from kids is just absolutely fucking incredible, right? Like, I remember when we first conceived Alila, and we were a couple of weeks away from having Alila. I had a reading with my spiritual medium, and she said that my granddad came through in spirit and said, hey, just tell Cal, be careful, because if I know him, he's going to have Alila, he's going to absolutely love having kids, and he's going to want to have a ton of them, and he should just be careful about the fact that if he's not careful, he's going to end up having a ton of kids. And sure enough, we end up falling pregnant with Havana not long after that as well. But I can tell you right now, I'd have 5 or 10 kids if Ashley would let me, right? I'd have as many as I possibly could. I think it's the best thing in the fucking world, right? And so part of that is going, okay, what's my upside here? And of course, there's going to be a trade-off. But then the second part of this conversation is, let's also look at the downside. Let's be pessimistic. Let's assume worst case scenario. If I do launch this business and it all goes to shit, what's the worst case scenario? I remember listening to an interview with Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And they were talking about entrepreneurialism, and they were talking about, for some people, leaving a job that's a good job to go and start your own business as being a risk. And Bill Gates says, I just don't think people fully understand how crazy that is as an idea, because if you were to leave a job and start your own company and learn how to do that and fail at that and then have to come back and get your same job again, your old employer would hire you in a heartbeat, because the skills that you learned in having to build your own business are so valuable, they'd never be able to teach you or pay you to be able to learn them yourself. It only makes you more valuable in the market, not less valuable in the market, right? And so we've got to also consider, it's like, hey, what's the worst that happens? You just get the job again that you already had, and you get a very similar job. So you're never going to be able to fucking find a job again, right? My grandparents, when I was 4, moved to Australia. They didn't know anybody here. They'd only been to Australia once before, which was very briefly just to have a look around, but that was already part of the immigration process. So they'd never been here. They didn't know anybody here, but they packed up their bags. They sold everything in the UK and they moved over. And I remember asking them, hey, you know, when you made that move, you chose to leave everything behind. You had an established life in the UK. You know, what's going through your mind in risking it all? And they said, to be fair, it wasn't really that much of a risk. And I go, what the fuck do you mean it wasn't a risk? Like, you're emigrating to another country, you're uprooting your whole lives. And they just said, look, it's pretty simple. We just thought that it can't be worse than the UK, because the UK wasn't great. But we figured, what's the worst that happens? If it's not great, we'll just come back. If it's not great, we'll just come back. Right? Like, what's the worst that happens? We just come back. And so if you think about that as a concept, and you contemplate the idea of moving to a whole nother country with your entire family and selling everything and having to start all over again, it's like, what's the worst that happens? I just go back. Like, who cares? And so if we get comfortable with that and we don't make the big thing, we don't make the negative things big things unnecessarily, it makes it much easier for us to make the decisions that perhaps we've been putting off as part of the process. So if I could give you one macro picture with regards to decision making, is my encouragement for you would be to do two things. I want you to write them down. Number one is I would increase the amount of decisions that you make, and I would dramatically increase the speed by which you make those decisions. If all you did differently next year was just simply, and maybe if I could add in a third one, is like fucking try to learn from the decisions that you make, right? But I assume that you're going to do that anyway, just by the nature of doing more of it, which is if you just make more decisions and the decisions that you make them faster. If you prioritize decisiveness and speed over perfection and trying to minimize all of your losses, you'll actually realize that at the end of the day, this is a game where you have disproportionate wins, not losses. Disproportionate wins, not losses. So you will lose some, but they'll probably be quite minor. And when you do win, some of the wins are going to be so big that you forget about all of the losses. Some of the wins will be so big that you forget about the losses. And I'll give you a great example of this, by the way. There's a great book written about Jeff Bezos and the Amazon story. It's called, what's it called? Fucking Event and Wonder, I think it's called. One second, I've got it here somewhere. It's in the mix there somewhere. The girls keep moving my books around, right? So I've got it's all over the place. But anyway, Invent and Wonder, and it's about Jeff Bezos and Amazon. And one of the things that he talks about in the book is that they take a lot of gambles, a lot of risks at Amazon on new things. And he says, we've been very fortunate that some of the things that we've done have paid off so well that they've been able to compensate us for the things that haven't gone so well. And so if you just take more risks, if you take more bets, if you make more decisions and you do it faster, you're going to be able to win as part of the process. Hands if this is making sense. Awesome. So if I can give you 3 decisions that I think any one of you could apply, and if you apply these 3 decisions, if you apply one of them, it'd change your whole fucking life. But if you apply all 3 of them to your life and you practice them, I think that would produce an unbelievable upside with very little to no downside risk. Okay? 3 decisions. You know, as Mel Robbins would say, you're one conversation or one decision away from changing everything. The same principle is true here as well, right? It's in the moment where you say, I do. It's in the moment where you say, I'm leaving. It's in the moment where you say, yes, please, I would like to take advantage of that. It's in the moment where you say, you're hired or you're fired. It's the moment where you say, I'm going to take my health seriously or not, right? Like, it's the moment of decision that everything changes for you. And up until that, before that, it's mental masturbation. You're talking about, thinking about it, but not doing anything about it. It's only when you make the decision and truly commit to it that everything starts to change. So, number 1, I want you to write it down. It is making the decision to go all in. Making the decision to go all in. Making the decision to go all in. And one of the values that we have at Wild Success is that wild is a way of life. And what we mean by that is, there's a great quote from, I think it's from Les Brown. He talks about the idea that how you do anything is how you do everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. So for me, I want to be all in on everything that I'm doing. Everything that I'm doing, I want to be all in on it. If I'm setting a goal, a dream, a vision, a challenge, a plan, whatever I'm in on, I want to be all in on it. I aspire to be better as a husband and a father. So when I'm with my wife or with my kids, I'm all in on those things. When I'm with my business, I try to be all in on that, right? I try to do a better job of separating those things. I'm not perfect at that. But certainly when I commit to something in terms of a game plan, I go all in. And I think that everyone will get a better result by committing and going all in. But in order for you to do that, I think the first principle to that decision is that you've got to do less. You've got to do less, okay? Because if you imagine that, there's a great book by Mark Manson. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And in that, he talks about this concept, basically, you only have so many fucks to give. That you can't do everything. You can't care about everything. And we're living in a world that I think the culture is changing a bit in this last 12 months, but we certainly have been living in a world where it's almost like you've got compassion fatigue, where you have to care about everything all of the fucking time. And if you care about something, why do you not care about something else, right? It's really quite amazing, right? It's like there's just a whole world of virtue signaling about why each cause is more important than the next. It's like, I care about fucking everything, right? But you can't care about everything because then you have no energy to care about anything, right? So it's about understanding that you can't do everything. You have to be able to go deep on some things. And so there's a real power in no. There's a real power in this concept of understanding that it's either a fuck yes or it's a no. And so there's a great quote from Matthew McConaughey, and he was talking about in his book, Green Lights. If you haven't read it, you should grab a copy of it, in Green Lights. He talked about how he was doing many things, and he always felt that he was doing sort of like a B plus in 3 or 4 different things. And he realized that actually he really wanted to live a life where he could live an A plus life. But in order to do that, he was spreading himself too thin. So he had, obviously, he was an actor for hire. He had his foundation. He had a media company. He had all these other things that he was doing. And he made a decision to say, hey, I'm not doing any of that stuff. What I'm going to do is just 2 things. I'm going to do them really fucking well. I'm going to be an incredible actor, and I'm going to run an incredible foundation. And everything else that's not that, I'm just not going to do it anymore. And so he had a very successful business, and all the other things that he was doing, he gave all those things away. He sold them, let them go, shut down the companies, and he said, I'm going to just double down on the things that I'm really good at, that I really want to do it much better. I'm going to go all in on those things. And so I want everyone to be aware of this. I really do genuinely believe this, that, you know, if you think about the survival of the fittest and you think about nature documentaries, the lion in the jungle doesn't die from starvation today. It dies from indigestion. I really want you to think about that concept, right? When the lion is the most vulnerable is not when it's hungry, but when it's full. You ever been on a safari like we did earlier this year? You see a lion eats and sleeps for a fuckload of time, right? Belly's fucking out here, right? And at that moment in time, he or she is the most vulnerable to an attack because they're sluggish, they're full, they're fat, they don't have the drive or the energy to try to make something happen. Effectively, they're gluttonous. And so it's like when the lion's hungry, it's at its most dangerous because it's the most desperate. But when it's full, it's not. And for all of you, I want you to get this concept that the biggest risk that you have in not achieving the success that you want is not because you're not doing the right things, but because you're trying to do too many of them. Right? You're majoring in minor things. And even if you've got some exciting major things that you're working towards, you only have so many hours in the day. There's only so much energy and passion that you've got. There's only so much mental capacity you have to dedicate to things. And if you spread that across 6 projects, it would stand to reason that you'd get a better result if you committed all of those things to one thing, because you could do a much better job. Not to mention, it's not just that you're not spreading yourself too thin, but by going deep, you can compound the lessons much faster by just doing that one thing versus trying to do 2 or 3 or 4 other things randomly. Hands if this is making sense. So there is a fear of failure, which is why we spread ourselves. We hedge our bets. But there's also a shiny object syndrome part of this as well. And then there's also just fucking life is exciting. And when you get a bit of success, people will tell you about all of these amazing things. It was once said that if you don't put your priorities in your calendar, somebody else will put their priorities in your calendar. And you got to be very aware. You got to guard the focus and your mind, because otherwise what will happen is people will steal your focus and take it in different directions. And you'll end up chasing rabbits that are not actually real. So, Hansi, you guys are following this so far? Number 1 is a decision to go all in. It's to fully commit, right? And part of that means making some decisions to put it all on the line. But I want you to be aware of that. That shouldn't be done as like a fucking random thought of going, hey, I've got no idea or awareness of what I'm doing in this area, but I'm going to go all in on it. My encouragement, I want you to think about this. There's a good analogy for this. I want you to fire bullets, then cannonballs. Please write that down. Bullets, then cannonballs. Bullets, then cannonballs. And this is a concept from product testing and product iteration. So you might be familiar with a company, it's not that well known, called Apple. And if you can take your mind back before the iPhone, Apple never used to make phones. Like that was now we assume they're a phone company, but there was a period of time where they only did laptops and computers, right? Now, they brought something out before the iPhone. What product did Apple bring out just before the iPhone that was an incredible success? What do we got? The iPod, yes. But then in between the iPod and the iPhone, they brought out something else. Yeah, it was a version of the iPod, just so we're very clear. It was the iPod Touch, right? iPod Touch. And so they brought out the iPod. They developed the ability to trick a lot of technology and put it in a small device. But then they brought out the Touch. And the reason why they did that was they were testing the same technology that would then become the touch screen on the phone. Right? And so for them, they already had brought out the idea of the product. They tested it with a bullet, and then once they demonstrated that they had the capabilities to do it, they then went all in and launched the iPhone. And of course, progressively over a period of time, they've improved that since then. Hence, you guys are following this conversation. So I want you to imagine it's like you're going to take a small bet, and then you're going to take a big bet. We talk about this in business coaching all the time. Start small and scale fast. When you've got something that's working, keep doubling down and building it. But you don't have to start. You don't have to go from 0 to hero. You start at 0 and then you go to 1, 2, 3. You progressively build it from there. So we're talking about this idea of you developing some concept or insight in a way where you can level up and take it to the next level. And then people will look at it and go, how are you doing what you're doing right now? That's amazing. You're taking all these risks. But it's not risks because you've been doing it for years previously and you're building and compounding on the lessons as you've gone. Hence, if this makes sense. Yeah? So as an example, this year as an example, we will have spent over $1 million on Facebook marketing. $1 million, right? Now, here's what's crazy about that. People look at that and go, fuck, that is outrageous. But if you knew what I knew, if you could turn a $5 to $10 lead into $190 to $330 in about 4 to 6 weeks, you would spend $1 million too. If you had absolute courage, confidence, and conviction, like absolute fucking certainty that if I generate a lead, I'm going to make money, then you would generate a lead and make money. You just would do that. Of course, you would spend that. So don't look at the $1 million. Instead, go, okay, what do you know or believe about marketing that I don't know or believe, that if I did know and believe what you believe, that I would also spend the $1 million. I'm going all in on that. And reality is I probably should have spent $2 or $3 million in reality, right? But I'm going all in on that, not because I'm a gambler or a risk taker. I just want to give Mark Zuckerberg $1 million. I'm going all in on that because the maths, it would be stupid not to. So when you look at people that are doing things that you don't know how to do or they're risky, you're like, how are they doing that? It's like they know something about this game that I don't know, because if I knew it as well, I'd probably do the same things. How's you guys are picking up what I'm putting down? Amazing. So number one, go all in. And I don't mean necessarily go all in right away, but I do mean fully commit to whatever you're doing. And in that process, when you find your I can do this moment, then fucking burn the boats and go all in. Absolutely fucking aggressively double down on it, right? And part of that as well means saying no to a ton of stuff. And at a certain level, in order for you to go to the next level, it also means saying no to the things that made you successful, because what got you here won't get you there. So that's the first decision. Number two, second decision is I want you to start to play to win. Make the decision to play the game to win. We talk about this all the time at Wild because I really do see this so often, which is that when somebody does go all in, it's obviously much easier for this to happen, but a lot of people don't go all in, and this is the second order consequence, where you see so many people in life that effectively hedge. They're concerned about it not working, it not going the way they want it to, and so effectively they don't play the game to win, they play the game to not lose. They don't play the game to win, they play the game not to lose. Who's ever seen a sports match before where you've got a team that takes the field and they're not actually really trying to win the game, they're just trying to play defensive so that they don't lose the game? Who's ever seen that before? Yeah? And so whilst that might be strategic and there might be some value in that, I also think it goes against the point of the game. The point of the game is you step on the field with the intent of fucking winning. And I know that might be naive because there's going to be some times where maybe the opponent you're dealing with is much better. But for me, I'd rather lose and have been played to win than go on the field and having a draw, but playing not to win, but playing not to lose. It's just not in my nature not to swing for the fences. It's not my nature not to back myself and to want to make it happen. Because what I've come to realize is this. The losses and the failures you have, whilst they're going to be painful and difficult, you'll survive. But one of the biggest regrets that I have, and I imagine you have the same as well when you reflect on your life, is not the things that you did that didn't work very well, but the missed opportunities where you didn't fully maximize the moment that you had because you were either distracted or you're playing it safe. I think we've got such an incredible opportunity. As far as I know, we only get one shot at this game called life. And so what a massive fucking waste it would be to get to the end of our life knowing that we had all of this blessing, all of this abundance, all of this opportunity, but because we either couldn't see it or didn't believe in ourselves or didn't think it was all going to work out for us, we didn't really fucking go for it. What a tremendous waste. to know that you were given an incredible opportunity, but you were so fixated on the idea of what if this doesn't work that you didn't put it all on the line. You didn't fucking go for it. You didn't play to win. And as a result, you sort of did win, but you didn't win as much as you should have or could have won simply because of the fact that you held yourself back. That would be such a tremendous waste. And I've had taste of that before. I've had moments before where I had an amazing experience, an amazing opportunity, an amazing life, and I just couldn't fully appreciate it. I couldn't fully connect with it. I didn't fully maximize it because I was always in my head playing a game of trying to be defensive and safe about it as opposed to fully just fucking going for it and living each day, not as if it was your last, but yet the idea and the concept of what I'm sharing. And so you're picking up what I'm putting down. And so I think there's a mindset and a philosophy which is, hey, play to win. And don't spend your time thinking too much about what if it doesn't go right, but instead think about, hey, if I don't fully commit and it works out better than I expect, how much am I leaving on the table? Like if this works out much better than I expect it to, right? What are all the reasons why it can work? And if it's going to work, wouldn't you want to get the very best outcome, right? And I think this comes down to really small decisions in life to make the decision that you deserve the very best, right? Once you get to a certain point financially, you realize that you only get moments one time. You only get moments one time, okay? So today, probably chances are, depending on who you are, you're probably only going to have one breakfast. You're probably only going to have one lunch day. You're probably going to have one dinner. If you go out with your husband or wife for a date night once a week, that week you only get one chance to have a beautiful night. You only get, maybe if you're lucky, 16, 17 Christmases with your kids before they don't want to spend any more of that time with you. If you have a holiday once a year, you get one holiday all fucking year, right? And so it just makes the most sense to me that if you're only going to get one chance to have a holiday, that you would want to try to have the best fucking holiday you possibly could, because you only get one chance to have that holiday, which means that in your adult life, you might only ever get to have 20 fucking holidays. And if you only get to have 20 fucking holidays, would you rather have done the very best you could to have the best holiday possible? Or would you rather have gone, oh, I'm not really sure if we have enough money when we come back from the holiday, so I'm just going to scrimp and scrap. Like, I'm not saying be stupid about it, but you get the idea. Fucking be intentional. Go for what you fucking want. Aim for the stars. Swing for the fucking fences and go for it. Because the quality of your life expands when you stop playing safe and you start playing to win. When you start playing to win, you deserve, you should win. You then start to win even more. You get a taste for fucking winning, and it feels fucking good. It feels good. Right? Make a decision, like within your means, make a decision to have the very best of everything that you possibly can. The very best that you possibly can. And for some of you, by the way, let me just say this to you, which is that if you are perhaps a little bit older and more mature than I, then I want you to be very aware that your current reality may not match your previous reality. And sometimes it's time for you to upgrade your thinking and the decision making that you've got. And probably the best example of this is my father. My dad is an amazing man. I love him dearly. I've learned so much from him about what to do in life and also at times what not to do. That's the nature of having a parent, right? And Dad is in a place where there was a period of time in his life for about 12 or so years where he was in basically financial ruin. He had got divorced the second time, and he was really in a dark place. And also in the economy in Australia at that point in time in Perth, it wasn't a good thing. And so he was in a really dark place for about 10 years financially. And you can only imagine what it's like living. I'm sure some of you can appreciate this, living with that financial cloud over your head for like a decade. It becomes difficult for you to appreciate that there could be something more than that. But in this last 10 years, his finances have accelerated exponentially. And he now is in a phenomenal place economically. And I only wish that he would enjoy more of the money that he's now got. Because if your mentality and mindset is still anchored in the past of that, and now you've got all this means, what's the point? There's no advantage of being someone that can see versus someone that can't see if you choose not to have a vision, right? Like there's no advantage of the man that can versus the blind man. Sight is not an advantage if you choose not to use it, right? So if you have wealth and abundance and you don't choose to use it, then what's the point? Right? So he went on a beautiful holiday with his partner. They decided to go to Port Douglas, Australia and stay in a place. But I was like, for me, you're going to get one holiday this entire year. And look, don't get me wrong, Port Douglas is a lovely fucking spot. But if I had good money and a beautiful woman and I wanted to celebrate and spend an amazing 2 weeks on a holiday, Port Douglas is probably not the top of my fucking list. I'd probably go to some other amazing places in the world because I have the economic means to do that. But if you're not in the way of thinking about maximizing it like that, Port Douglas is a great option because previously you couldn't do a holiday, but you could do much better than Port Douglas if you actually dreamed a bit bigger and fucking swung for the fences and went for it. Hands if this is making sense. So make a decision to play to win. Make the decision to play to win, okay? And then my third decision for all of you, which is a little bit different than perhaps Nikki says it's a shithole. I wouldn't go that far. There are some nice places in Port Douglas. They stayed at a nice resort, but it's certainly not at the top of the list, right? My third decision, this is going to be a bit different for you, and I trust that you're able to take it and apply it and interpret it in the way that is relevant for you and your family and your beliefs. But it's the decision to every day be worthy of, deserving of, and earn God's favor. To be worthy of, deserving of, and to earn every day God's favor. And it was about this time last year that I watched a video with an incredible American entrepreneur called Patrick Bet-Davis, PBD. Who's heard of PBD before, Patrick Bet-Davis? You might have seen his podcast or read a book or anything like that. Yeah, if you haven't, I'd check him out. An amazing man. Iranian, immigrant, fled war-torn Iran, came over to America. His dad worked in basically like a 7-Eleven convenience store. He then joined the military, spent a number of years in the military, ended up getting into insurance. He's built a multi-billion-dollar insurance company, sold it out. He now has an incredible business, incredible entrepreneur, an amazing sort of American success story as so many immigrants end up being, which is just incredible, right? LaSheila was part of his insurance agents for a while. Amazing. PBD, Patrick Bet-Davis. Patrick Bet-Davis. So amazing man. But one of the things that I learned from him about a year ago, I was listening to a podcast that he did, and someone asked him, what is your biggest fear? What's your biggest fear? And he said, look, I've never shared this publicly. He says, but my biggest fear is to lose God's favor. To lose God's favor. He said, because he says, I've got a lot of blessings in my life that I know that I don't always deserve. And he said, I've been very blessed. He says, I believe I have God's favor, that God is favorable upon me and is blessing me with abundance and opportunity. And he says, my biggest fear is that I no longer do the things required to continue to earn that good favor. Because so much of the blessings in my life, whether it be my wife or my children or my business, just my life, is blessed. In his mind, it's blessed by God, and I want to continue to earn God's favor. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, there's something in that. And you obviously can interpret that in any way that you like, but I think that there is such a power in going, hey, as much as I strive, as much as I push myself, as much as I try to do the best I can with what I've got, let's all be aware that there is a divinity here that is blessing us. And that to people that do more, share more, give more to the world, then they also attract more into their lives. And for me, I've had moments in time when I was younger where we were doing big things, or at least what I thought were big things at the time, and I started to buy my own hype. I started to believe that it was me that was doing that, as opposed to that it was sent or guided by spirit. And I stopped doing the things that allowed me to be successful. I got off track a little bit. You lose your way. And then you see that all get taken away from you, and you realize that it was never yours. It was just given to you as an opportunity. And if you don't respect or appreciate it, then he or she or they will take it away from you. And so for me, about 12 months ago, I made the decision to go, hey, I'm aware that right now I have an incredible opportunity. And this opportunity is beautiful and it's sacred and it's vulnerable. And if I can take this as a shepherd and I can watch over this, then I can be a good steward for it, and I can continue to breathe life into it and love it and protect it and work on it and develop it and grow with it, then it could be something really fucking incredible. But if I'm negligent in my duties, then that will be taken away from me as it was in the past. And the only way for me that I can anchor myself into that reality is to continue every day to show up and to earn God's favor. And it's something that I'm obsessed about. And for me, it's been a powerful anchor point. And it's very, very simple. There's not a huge amount of stuff that I think that I need to do, but I am aware that in the past, when you overindulge, Robin Sharma once said, if you sit at the table of success for long enough, you'll become fat. when you sit at the table for success long enough, you become fat. You overindulge in that. Jocko Willink would talk about it, that discipline equals freedom. And so for me, what is it? It's about showing up every fucking day and doing the work. And for me, doing the work is getting into the gym. It's going for a walk or going for a run. It's doing something to anchor my day at the very beginning of the day. And I was just saying this to Jaden this morning. We went for a walk along the river. And he said, "But man, this is amazing. Do you do this every day?" And I go, "Not every day, but enough days to make it noteworthy." I said, "But I'm either in one or two places. I'm either at the gym on a morning or I'm here on the river." I said, Thursday this week was the first time, I think maybe all year, where I didn't do that to start the day. And it was a one day where I ended up doing it during the day instead. Because on the morning I had enrollment calls, sales calls from 5 a.m. in the morning. And that night I went to bed at about 12:30. So I had 4 hours of sleep and I wanted to wake up and go for a walk and I fucking didn't get up. I was so fucking tired, I just dragged my ass out of bed. And then I was like, I didn't do it today. And I should have fucking done it today. And yes, I would have been tired if I had to get up at 4 a.m., but that's what I fucking should have done. And so I went for a walk during the day. And then sure enough, Friday morning, what did I do? I got up and I went for a walk. Friday morning, I got it done. And early this week, I got it done. So for me, there's a discipline in getting up early in the morning, starting the day ideally before the sun comes up. There's something spiritual and redemptive about that. I don't know what it is, but fuck, there's something so powerful of waking up before the sun is up. Right? And no one else is awake. David Goggins would talk about the idea of taken souls, right? There's like no one else is doing it. There's such a power when you wake up early in the morning. By the way, for all of you as well, I can't tell you how much your self-esteem would improve if you were the first person to show up at work. If that's all you did next year was you showed up first, you have no idea what a difference that makes. Because there's something that happens. If we work together and I show up first and there's no one else here, then I go, just the simple fact that I showed up earlier means I deserve more because I was willing to do something that no one else was prepared to do. And then if I walk in and I already see you there, I'm like, wow, fuck, Mackenzie's already here. Fuck. There's something different about that because I thought I was coming here early, but you showed up and then you're consistent with it. Every fucking day you show up and you do the work. And so for me, the rule is that, very simple. Wake up before anybody else, do something physical, move my body, go for a run, go for a walk, right? And there's going to be days where you miss a day. That's life, okay? Where you fall out of routine. That's life. But here's the rule. Never miss 2 days in a row. Never miss 2 days in a row, okay? Never miss 2 days in a row. And there is something powerful about you showing up. So for me, it's about showing up as a husband first, a father second, a man third, and making sure I can deliver on those things. It's being present for my wife, present for my kids, present for my team, present for myself. It's doing the things that allow me to be the very best that I possibly can. And your thing for you might not be getting up in the morning and going to the gym or getting up in the morning and going for a walk or going for a run. It might not be that for you. For you, the equivalent for you is basically anything that you've got in your head that you know is a vice or an indulgence or a weakness that you've got mentally that you know, hey, I really fucking need to stop that. I need to actually draw a line in the sand and be better than that. And if that was my test to demonstrate how serious are you about what I'm giving you, would I be willing to endure that in order to have this? For the longest time, Jason will tell you this, my weight went up and down and up and down and up and down. Why? Because I was always happy to prioritize the work over the health and fitness. That was always the hardest thing for me to be consistent at, was going to the gym and being disciplined as part of that. And it wasn't until I made that distinction and I said, hey, I'm actually just going to draw a line in the sand that goes, this is a non-negotiable for me. And it's taken probably 2 years to get to that point, but I can tell you right now, there's just something different about the idea of getting up every day and doing that and having a daily practice in that. And it doesn't have to be, as I said, health and fitness. For some of you, it might be a spending thing. For some of you, it might be making a sale. For some of you, it might be about communicating your brand on social media. It's like, hey, I'm earning God's favor today. I'm putting the fucking message out there. For some of you, it might be fucking reading the books. I don't know what it is for you, but for me, it was around the exercise and the training and waking up and prioritizing that and starting the day with the right intent. That's what I needed to do for me to continue to feel like I was earning it. And for you, it would be different, but you need to find whatever that is. And I think if you listen to yourself and you go, hey, if he, she, they was giving me an opportunity and they were going to go, hey, I'm going to give you something, but I want to know how bad you want this. I imagine there's at least one thing that you could have in your mind right away. You go, hey, okay, if I was real serious about this as a way of demonstrating, hey, I hear you, I see you, and I fucking want this, and I'm willing to do the work for it, what is the version of the work? What is the work that's difficult for you to do consistently? Not that it's hard to do, but it's that it's the consistency that's been hard for you to follow through on. And it's like, if I use that as my benchmark to say, hey, don't judge me based off the things that I'm great at. Judge me by how disciplined I am in showing up and doing this bit. Because you know that I'm not good at this. You know this is hard for me. But because I'm showing up and doing it, I want you to know that I'm fucking showing up and I'm worthy of it today. I might not be great today. It might not be the best day, but I'm fucking showing up. I'm doing the work. Whatever that represents for you, that's the thing you've got to lean into. And here's the thing. There will come a time where that no longer is what you have to do to be deserving of it. I'm aware of that for me. There's days where I go, hey, I'm doing it, but I've got to a point where I don't feel as though that was enough anymore. You understand? Like, you get to a certain point where you get to a level and you're like, oh, that's just now expected of you because it's who you've become. And I'm sure that next level will appeal to it as well. Hands if this is making sense. And so for me, I want you to think about this. Perhaps if you want to frame it differently, I want you to consider the concept of every day making the decision to win the day. Making a decision to win the day. What do you need to do in order to win the day? What has to happen for you to feel like you've won the day? Because most people don't even have an idea of what needs to happen for them to win. And you wonder why most people don't feel like they're fucking winning. It's like, hey, what do you have to do in order to feel like you're winning? Great, do that. Not hard. And then you feel like you're winning every day. And by the way, it doesn't actually matter if you are winning or not. The fact that you think you're winning is probably all that really matters, because that's going to give you the momentum to keep playing a bigger game and keep swinging for the fences. Is this making sense, guys? Amazing. And by the way, if you listen to anybody that is outrageously successful, and I'm not putting myself in that category by any means, but if you listen to anyone that's outrageously successful, what you will see to a man and a woman alike is there is a discipline in having a relentless work ethic. There's a discipline in having a relentless work ethic because they know that it's much easier for them not to do it. And it's much easier to rest on your laurels, and it's much easier to waste your talent, and it's much easier because things are easier for you. It's easier for me now than what it was when I started. It was much harder in the beginning. It's much easier now. But as a result of that, that's why you've got to force yourself to do the work, because you know that, hey, easy come, easy go. Easy come, easy go. And when you take your eye off the prize, then the prize tends to evade you, right? You see this so often with successful people. The stuff that makes them successful, they stop doing it, they overindulge, and as a result, then they lose it. And so you can still indulge, but as you indulge, you also need to counterbalance that with an increased level of work ethic and hunger and drive. Doesn't mean you have to work all the time. I'm not saying don't rest and recharge, of course. I'm just saying that you got to make sure you've got an awareness of going, hey, this is not promised. I'm deserving of it, but I'm deserving of it because I did the work, and that was yesterday. I've got to re-earn that right and opportunity today. And if you have that mindset and the mentality, keep your feet on the ground, keep your hands there. Great quote to leave you with on this point, which is that God hears your prayers and blesses your hands. God hears your prayers but blesses your hands. So many people talk, don't fucking do. So it's like, hey, I'm speaking into an existence, but watch me work. Right? Another way of thinking about it is, if I followed you around for a GoPro for the last month to 3 months, would I say that you're actually serious about the goals that you say you're serious about? Because if I go, actually, you're really not fucking serious about these goals, then it's time for you to make an adjustment and a change. Because if you know that's not true, and you know that actually, if I was to follow you around, you would say that actually you're not really serious, then you also subconsciously know that you're not serious, and it's fucking eroding your self-esteem and self-confidence all the fucking time. But if you know, hey, you follow me around, you'll see that I'm working. I'm putting in the work, putting in the effort. I'm doing the best that I can. I'm relentless in this pursuit. Then that itself is a sense of confidence you carry into a scenario and an environment that speaks volumes about you. The energy that speaks volumes about you versus the energy of going, hey, I'm sort of faking it till I make it, and I'm saying one thing, but I'm not doing another. There's no shortcut to earning the self-respect of yourself. And that's just simply showing up and doing the work, especially when it's difficult. Making sense? Amazing. Awesome. Sweet. So I want you to think about those three things. Go all in, play to win, and then finally, and perhaps even most importantly, earn God's favor every single day. Okay? Go all in, play to win, and show up and earn God's favor every single day. Here's your prayers. He blesses your hands.